right. All right. Well, welcome everybody. So this video is going to be about a topic I guess the overall message or the overall assignment for my new book. And I want to talk about the only way that you can win both in business and in life. And I really want to point this out because I have about 4 points that I really want to go over, and this is going to help you win. Like regardless of whether it's in business, on your job, or just in life in general, this is going to help you win. Just think about the result that you want. Think about the outcome, the payout, right? Like I want you to think about your wildest dream, and then I want you to think about how you can make that happen in other people's lives so that you become the person that has lived the thing, that has lived through whatever the assignment is, right? So that you can effectively allow other people to reach that goal. And so that is my assignment here. If you don't know the mission, let me restate the mission. The mission is for me to help 1 million people start 1 million businesses, making at least $1 million each. That is the mission. That is the God assignment. And the purpose of this is so that we can cause the kingdom of God, the people's assignments, things that needs to be done to be further and to advance. And so I have my notes over here. So I'm probably going to be looking over here a little bit, but I want to get into it. And I want to really begin to point out what this book is really about and what this goal is. And so the goal is to awaken the assignment that is already in you, the assignment that you have been given, right? And so my aim here is to get you to understand that one, you have an assignment, and two, get you to understand what that assignment is, and then three, help you to begin to walk in that assignment. Like, what does that mean for you, right? What is it that you're put on this earth to do? Because if you are here on this earth, there is an assignment for you. And I want you to have all of what you want, right? The desires of your heart. I want you to have the cars. I want you to have the money. I want you to have the houses. I want you to have all of those things, but not as the primary goal, not as something to solely go after. I want those things to be a byproduct of you figuring out, how do I give value to the world? How do I use the gift that God has given me, that I was born with, in order to serve others? And by you serving others, the result of that is you having the things that you want. Okay, so let's get into what it means to have like this marketplace dominance according to the kingdom, right? What does it mean to have dominion? Well, here are I'm going to give you 4 places or 4 points of how dominion operates in the marketplace. The first thing is through wisdom and skill. One of my favorite verses in the Bible is Proverbs 22 and 29. And I'm going to read it in a different version, but I also like what the King James Version says as well. But here's the other version first. It says, "Do you see those who are skillful in their work? They will serve before kings." In the King James Version, it says, they will stand, they will not stand before, they will stand before kings. They will not stand before mean men. And that word mean really means insignificant. People who are not going to really add to your assignment, right? And help you advance. You're going to stand in the courts of kings. And all of that means in this instance of kings and queens, it means people of great influence, people that have their own sphere of dominion and domain. And so figure out what it is that your skill is, right? In my other book, The Wealth Blueprint, I talk about the Moses effect. And I really touch on figuring out what it is that is already in your hand. If you don't know the story, let me go through it just really quickly. So Moses sees a burning bush, and he goes to the bush because the bush is burning and it is not consumed. Moses gets there, and remember, Moses is a shepherd at this time, and so he gets there, and God tells him to take off his shoes because he stands on holy ground. And one of the things that God gives him, the assignment that God gives him is this. He simply he says, "Go to Pharaoh and tell him to let my people go." Right? To free them, be the deliverer and be the instrument that I use in order to deliver a people. So one, we see the assignment. And so the other thing that he tells him to do is he tells him to look at what is in your hand. And then he tells him to take that, throw it on the ground, and that very thing that is already in his hand begins to be an instrument that causes doors to open, that causes realities to be in existence. One, it turns into a serpent, right? And then the other thing that the staff was used for is he used it for a numerous amount of things, but he also used it to turn the water to blood. He also used it to hit a rock, and we see water coming out of the rock. And so this instrument that seemed like it was insignificant, right? And a lot of times that's what we do. We look at our own gifts, we look at our own skills, and we say, oh, this is common sense, or everybody knows how to do this. And so we discount the very thing that God gave us. And so dominion is secured. It's not by raw power, but by excellence, right? And excellence is the execution of a task in a way that is of high quality. And so then you begin to kind of look at your skills, right? Or this is what I did. I looked at my skills and I was able to say, okay, how does this help me advance the kingdom? Because everything that is in you, everything that God has put in you is used to advance the kingdom. And so how do you take over, right? We talk about the 7 mountains, and now we have introduced another mountain, an eighth mountain. But I want to talk about one of the main mountains, and that is the mountain of business, right? And so when we look at this mountain, if we are the ones that God has called in the beginning, right? And when we look at Genesis, we see that this call, or that this identity, was given to us. So that identity is this. One, the identity is this. He tells us, first he blesses us, then he tells us to be fruitful, then he tells us to multiply, then he tells us to have dominion, and then he tells us to subdue, right? And so I really want to focus on that dominion, that domain, that area of rule. I want to focus on that for a minute, because I think that this is very important to understand. When we look at that word domain or dominion, what we have is this, and I'm looking at my notes here. And so the word dominion, it is a God delegated authority. And so when we begin to understand that not only can we operate in a spirit of excellence, but that we can have a domain, and we're supposed to have a domain, right? We're supposed to be a steward. And we understand that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, and everything in it belongs to him. We understand that. But what happens is we have been called to become stewards, or we have called to become managers of the things that he has placed in our hands. One of the things that I love, one of the parables that I love in Matthew, it talks about the talents, and so we see the division of the different monies, if you will, or the talents that was given to people, or to the 3 servants. And so I want to focus on the servant who did nothing with his talent. And what he did is he took that talent and he buried it. And we see that talent was then taken away from him and given to someone who could actually do something with it. And so I don't want that to be you. I want you to have your talent, and I want you to increase and multiply that talent. not so that you can get the glory or you can get the fame and all of this stuff, because those things will come, right? That may come with the territory. But I want you to begin to define what it is to multiply your gift, right? Your gift may be in the financial world, right? And so then how do you help others become wealthy? How do you help others become more affluent, right? Not for the purpose of just so that you can get it, but the scriptures do tell us that, the words of a rich man, it's heard. And so there is a reason of why we need to be at this level. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next point. So the next point is how dominion operates in the marketplace is also through integrity and justice. Integrity and justice. And so this scripture is coming out of Proverbs 11:1. And it reads this. And it says, a false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. So those who conduct business God's way are entrusted with greater influence. I'm reminded of also a story in the Bible where a particular servant's debt was forgiven. And then he goes and looked for other people who owed him and was demanding that they pay. And, and it's like, are we being just, right? Like, are we giving or are we measuring by the same rule that we were measured by? Because the scriptures also say however you measure a situation, however you judge something, you're also going to be measured by that same thing. So the vice versa actually works, right? And so we need to understand that we have to do things in a way, when you are talking about kingdom, right? We have to do things in a way that are not only just, but they are integrous, right? And so we have to begin to map out what that looks like for us, right? Having money is not a bad thing, right? The reason why I named this book God's Not Broke, is to bring an understanding that let's get something straight. Let's say your parents are like ultra wealthy and it's Christmas time and you write a Christmas list. Do you expect not to get anything on that list? Like, no, like you understand that whatever I ask my parents for, right? It's Christmas time. This is the time for me to get blessed. This is the time for things to be manifested in my life, right? Whatever I ask, I'm going to receive it, right? So why wouldn't you think in that same vein when it comes to God, right? If he is the God that you serve that says, okay, I own, what is it? I own the cattle on 1,000 hills. Like, if you understand that, and if you believe that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, if you believe that everything is his, right, then why not approach it that if you are an heir, that you have a legal right to partake in the riches, right? And one of the things that the Lord said he gives in abundance is wisdom. And when we look at the scripture says this simply. It says that in one of the hands of wisdom is riches. So we begin to understand, right, that even the integrity of business, even the integrity of how we think about who God is. Are you thinking about God in an integrous way, right? Or are you thinking about God from a standpoint of even lack, even? And so we need to begin to understand the ways that we are thinking. All right, let's move on to the next point. And so another way that dominion operates in the marketplace is through vision and multiplication. I love this because one of the scriptures that my church group has we just went over. We were talking about Paul and how Paul lost his vision for 3 days. And when Paul regained his vision, one of the things that happened is a transformation also happened. And so we saw a transformation happened within Paul, right? He began to see things differently. And I loved that poetry, if you will, in the scriptures about him losing his physical sight, regaining his physical sight, but also regaining a spiritual perspective, a right spiritual perspective of what was happening, who Jesus was, and who he was to him. And so that's one of the things that we need to understand of how we have dominion in the marketplace is through vision and multiplication. The reason why multiplication is important is because of this. Anything that is put in our hands, we are called to multiply. Full stop. Anything that is put in our hands, we are called to multiply. And so when a seed is put into the ground, that seed multiplies itself X whatever times over, right? When that seed is put into the ground, what begins to happen is that's watered, it's nurtured, it begins to grow, it begins to get the nutrients, it begins to get the sunlight, the elements and the building blocks of multiplication for that seed begins to be taken in. Then that tree or that plant begins to produce fruit or begins to produce a flower. And what we see at the end of that life cycle, at the end of that cycle, we see other seeds being produced. And then those seeds produce other things. And so it becomes an exponential growth. And so that's what we're called to do in business. Here is why. Because you must complete your assignment. Your assignment is important. It is not good enough. It is not good at all. For us to get an assignment, know that we are supposed to complete it, and then say, well, I can't do this because I don't have the money. I can't do this because I don't have the resources. That is not the will of God. It's not the will of God for your life. It's not the will of God for the people who are connected with you. It is not the will of God for his body, for his kingdom. That is not the will of God. The will of God is so that the scripture says this, I came so that you may have life and that more abundantly. And living is being able to do the assignment that God gave you the authority to do in such a way that it is unhindered by something like money, right? Money should not be the thing, right? We don't trust in money, right? It's God that we trust in, but we understand that he uses that as a resource. We don't trust in the resource, we trust in the source. But one of the things we need to understand is that when he gives us that source, that can be a source that is blocked for you. And so I just want to teach you how to unblock that. What does that look like for you, right? It could be simply understanding the rules around wealth and the rules around money, right? How can you master anything if you don't understand the inner workings of it? How can you begin to dominate or begin to have dominion over something that you don't understand? In order for you to overcome a system of lack, let's just say that's what it is. In order for you to overcome that, the imperative thing that you must do is you must create another system that will dominate or displace that system. That is the only way that you can upset or dismantle a system, is by creating another system that overpowers it. And so when you begin to do that, right, you begin to maybe dismantle the thoughts that you may have, right, around money. You know, one of the things that I grew up hearing, and not necessarily by my parents, but, you know, they would say, you know, people would say money doesn't grow on trees. Or another saying would be, you know, I can't afford that, or I don't have money for that. And so we must then understand that how we perceive the vision that we have when we say things like that, right? Everything starts as an imagination. Everything starts with a thought. Once that thought is seated, right? It is seated in your heart. And then once it's seated in the heart, it takes root there and it begins to grow. And then once it begins to grow from your heart, your mouth begins to speak the thing. The scriptures teach us this: out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And so we begin to understand, or we need to understand, where the vision first started, right? Vision is first begins in your mind. The thing that you can see that remains unseen. That's what vision is. The thing that we can see in our mind that remains unseen. Then that vision becomes reality, or that vision becomes manifested. And so what does that look like? It simply looks like this: understanding where your visions began. When you begin to understand where the visions began, then you can trace where the seed was planted. When you trace where the seed is planted, then you can understand where things took growth where they should not have. Then once you understand what's growing, then you can pull it up. Once you pull it up, then your language will change. That's how you know that you've grown. That's how you know that you've been and you went to a different place, right? That's how you know that you've moved from spot A to spot B, because your language changes. When you begin to say, you know what, not that I can't afford that, you begin to speak and say, how can I afford that? You know, you don't start saying like, oh, well, money doesn't grow on trees. You begin to say, you know, I can create money because money is not an issue for me, right? So anything that you have not mastered has the ability and the potential to overtake you. All right, so let's move to the next one. The next one, I really want to take some time here because it's the last one, but I knew I was going to take probably the most time on this one. But the other way that I want to talk about here is the dominion operates in the marketplace via spiritual authority. And this spiritual authority is the authority that is been given to you. And we know this because of this, right? One of the things that we know that we've been given is spiritual authority. This is something that I don't think most people understand really what it is, but I want to try to help you understand at least the spiritual authority that you have been given in business. Not only in business, but on your job, not only on your job, but in life. And I think that life is a business, right? Life is your business, right? It's the things that you're doing, right? You should be operating your life like a business, regardless of what you do, or if you have a job or if you have a business. You should be operating it as a business. I'll probably do that on another video, but I want to talk about this. I want to talk about the authority, or the Greek word here that the Bible uses is exousia. It's the same power or the same authority or the same thing that Jesus gave his disciples when he gave them power over serpents, when he gave them power over the enemy, and when he gave them power over when he gave them power over when he gave them power over the evil things or the enemy. And so the main thing that I really want to point out here is this. I'm going to look at my notes for this because I did a deeper study on this word, exousia, or power or authority. You know, one of the things that that this word breaks down to is it breaks down to a word. It's a root word that is exousia or exists, exousia. And the basic meaning of this word is it is lawful or permitted, right? When you have the authority, and this is what we have the authority over, right? Whatever business God has given you, you have the authority over it. And so when you're looking at the realm or the mountain of business, it's important that you understand that you have the authority. If you operate with the misunderstanding that you do not have authority, then you won't do the things that cause you to move in that power. You won't do the things that cause things to come into your hands simply because you don't think that you have the power in order to accomplish that. For example, one of the main mission that I have been given, right? It's a million people to help them start a million businesses, making at least $1 million. That is the call that I've been given. And so this understanding of this is one, this is not a me thing. There is no way that I can do this in and of myself. This has to be a God thing. It's a God assignment, but it also is given grace, but it's also given with that authority. Okay, so let's look at this again. So the basic meaning of this is the right or power of freedom of choice, the ability to act with authorization. This is important because when you step into rooms, when you go on your job, when you go into boardrooms, when you go into meetings, you need to understand that you have this, call it an invisible piece of paper that has been signed by the highest power there is, that gives you the authority to subdue, to have dominion, right? And subdue is not something that, I'm not saying to be violent, right? I'm not saying that. To subdue means to take rule or to take authority over. Dominion is the domain that you have control over, the rule over, right? And so I want to look at the etymology of this word as well. And so I think that gives us some really good understanding of what this means. The etymology ex means out of or from. Exousia is the other part of that, means being, substance, or the essence. It also is related to another word called ine or enai, which means to be. And so together, when you put exousia together, it literally means this: that which comes out of being as lawful authority, that which comes out of one's being as lawful authority. And so there are plenty of places where we see this exousia power being given. And one of the other places I really want to point out is when Jesus gave his disciples exousia or power over demons and sickness, right? And so this is really important because to understand that you have been delegated this authority to move in a way, right? It's like it gives you the right to act, right? It gives you the right to act, and I want to actually want to touch on that a little bit. In John 1:12, it says this. It says, "To all who received him," and I'm paraphrasing a little bit here. "To all who received him, he gave the right or exousia to become children of God." This goes back to my previous point. If you are a child of God, if you first you recognize that you have the right to be, and then you say, "I am a child of God," and you act as if, and you are, and you following the commandments and all of these different things, right? And you are saying, "I'm a child of God," then to realize and to recognize that you are not that you are not serving a broke God. Like, God is in his infinite, right? He's not broke. So you shouldn't be either. And if you are experiencing this, barring or excluding that you are going through a test or a trial that is ordained by God. Barring that, the other part or the other reason is that this is something that is coming up against your God-given assignment, your God-given right to be in abundance, to be living in a place that you do not have to worry about when you're going to pay your bill. You don't have to worry about if your lights are going to get shut off. You don't have to worry about if eggs cost $8 or $9, right? Like, that is not a place that God has called you to be. If you are worrying about those things, you are out of alignment. Even in the place that you quote unquote don't have, if you're going through a test and trial, understanding that God isn't broke also understands that, you know what, God will supply all of my needs. There is no place, there is no situation that he will not supply my needs. There is no circumstance that can cause me to believe that I am without, even if it may look like that to other people or to the outside. That is not my reality that I live. And because that is not my reality that I live, then that is not what I perceive. Remember what we talked about, the vision. You have to understand that's the essence of faith, right? Is knowing, is hoping for something that you don't see to be true at some point, right? Like, you know that it is, even though you may not be able to see it, right? That is the essence of faith, believing that it is there, even though you don't have hard evidence, and the evidence becomes the hope in the fact that it's there. I don't want to go down that road, but understanding that there is nothing that you can't like, if he is God, and he is, then we need to understand that whatever it is, he shall supply it. Whatever it is, he is the source, and from the source comes the resource. Okay, so I want to look at a couple more things, right? So another thing of this word, it denotes jurisdiction or the realm or the area, right? So another thing is, it is a freedom of choice, right? Paul talks about this in 1 Corinthians. He says, take care that your liberty, or the other word for that is exousia, your authority, does not become a stumbling block to the weak. And again, so even, I'm gonna take this a different way. Even your liberty to think whatever thoughts that you want to think, do not cause that to be a stumbling block for someone else, right? And here's what I mean by that. A lot of people look at what they quote unquote call the prosperity gospel, and they say that it's bad. They say that, whatever, people eat ice cream and they get fat from it. Does that mean that the ice cream is bad? Like, no, it's your misuse of it. So me saying, or when people say, the understanding that God is not broke is the understanding that I should be able to do my assignment without worrying about money. I should be able to advance the kingdom without worrying about money. I should be able, if the Lord says, go to California and go help the homeless, or go to Africa and in Kenya or somewhere and help the homeless, or help the misfortunate. I should be able to do that without restriction. And so that's the message of this. This is to teach you how you can get to your position in the kingdom that you are supposed to be on, the throne that you are supposed to be sitting on. How do you get there? That is the message. And so I want to talk about just this word dominion just a little bit more. And so one of the things that the word dominion um, is also, it means raw power or ability. And that word exousia also means legal authority or the right to use the power. Which here's the example. A police officer may not be stronger than you, but he carries the badge to act in the government's name. So I want you to stop looking at your situation as them having power over you. I want you to stop looking at your situation that you're in right now. Whatever doubts that you have, whatever regrets that you have, throw them away. Because today, you are going to take those and you're going to replace them with the understanding that I do not have to be in the situation that I am in right now. Whatever your situation is, even if it doesn't have to do with money, even if that has to do with business, because I'm of the belief the way that you do one thing is how you do everything. And so even when we talk about business, when we talk about money, right? If you're causing things to have life, to flourish, even in your money and your finances, other places in your life, that's going to spill over, right? You're going to cause life to come in that way. And so whatever situation that you're in, if it may seem small to other people, but it's big to you. I really want to give you the permission, or really, it's not even me giving you the permission, it's me giving you the awareness that not only do you have an assignment, but your assignment is great and it must be carried out. And not only does it have to be carried out, you already possess everything in you that you need in order to carry that assignment out. You have the resources available for you. You just have to open up your eyes and see it. You already have everything that it is that you need. It is up to you to take the one thing, what is in your hand, look at it, exercise that thing, and cause it to be multiplied. Because the thing that is in you is the thing that God put in you. And so begin to look at it and understand that you have the badge of authority. Not only do you have the badge of the authority, you have the right to use it. And so because you have been given the piece of paper that gives you the power and the authority over these situations, over the money, over the businesses, over the outcome of how you see that you're supposed to live, right? You have the power to change it because God has given you the power to change it. And if you are worrying about what your purpose is right now, I just want to encourage you and to let you know that your purpose is in Him. And because your purpose is in Him, He will supply everything that you need in order to fulfill that purpose. And because He's going to supply those, you don't have to worry about where it's coming from. All you have to do is understand your role in the kingdom and what the right thing is to do, and everything else will just fall in line. Understand what's in your hand, understand your part in the kingdom, and understand the right thing to do, and everything will follow. I promise, I guarantee it with 100% certainty, because that is His promise. That is the thing that He has given to you. He's given you an assignment. It's already written. It's already been ordained. You have the dominion. You have the power. So do the thing. And don't worry about what other people say. Don't worry who looks at you in a certain type of way and says, you may not be this, you may not be that. None of that matters. What identity are you picking up today? Are you a king? Are you a queen? If you are, and I know that you are, then rise up. Take your rightful place. Sit on the throne of influence that you have been called to. And when you do this, things will not only change for you, but they will change in you. All right. I think that is it for today. All right.